Hey guys, this is Austin. This is the brand new OnePlus 7 Pro, and the question as always, is it worth it? So this is the first time that OnePlus has brought out a Pro version of their phone, and there's a lot to like here. Unlike the standard OnePlus 7, which we actually haven't even seen yet, although by the time you watch this video, they will most likely have it announced. The Pro version brings a brand new, completely bezel-less display, and we have a new triple camera design with some really nice features, including an incredibly fast display. This is a full 90 Hz, and it looks awesome. It should be no surprise that OnePlus is opting to go for multiple versions of their flagship. I mean, you look around and pretty much everyone else is doing the same thing. There are like 4 different versions of the Galaxy S10, and of course with the iPhone we have the XR, the XS, as well as the XS Max. And by going up a little bit on the budget, it means that we get a lot of extra features on the OnePlus 7 Pro. So one of the most noticeable ones is the lack of a notch. Instead we have a motorized pop-up selfie camera, which actually is a pretty good way of doing it. If you get rid of the selfie camera, you'll see there's very, very little bezel, just a tiny little bit of a chin on the bottom. But as soon as you open up that camera, the selfie pops right up. And this is supposedly pretty durable. It's rated for something like 100 or 150,000 operations. And if it detects that you're dropping it, it should automatically pull the camera in to avoid any kind of damage. But it seems to be pretty sturdy. I mean, I'm not gonna like destroy it or something, but. Speaking of, the screen is also seeing a major improvement. Now, first of all, it's big. This is a 6.7-inch panel, which makes the OnePlus 7 Pro even bigger than something like the Galaxy S10 Plus. One of the most noticeable things here, though, is that not only is it a higher resolution, but it also runs at a higher frame rate, at a full 90 Hz. Now, we've seen this a couple times with some gaming phones, such as the ROG phone, and even a faster display with the Razer phone, and this really does make a huge difference. Everything is so much more smooth, and of course, that's been one of the major advantages of OnePlus for years. They have a very, very well optimized software stack on top of the latest and greatest on the silicon side, which means that this straight up flies. OnePlus has also taken a page out of Samsung's book and curved the glass both on front and back. I mean, if you close your eyes, this basically feels like a Galaxy S10, but that's certainly not a bad thing. Not does it mean that the OnePlus 7 feels a little bit thinner, but importantly, it also means that it just sort of feels nice when you're like scrolling, especially when you're like swiping in from the side. And I know some people don't love this, especially if you're like watching a video, it does distort a little bit on the edges, but I'm a huge fan of this. And honestly, this is some of the nicest hardware that OnePlus has ever put out. It's Gorilla Glass, it's aluminum, and of course, you've got to talk about that color. So it's actually forget what it's called. It's Nebula Blue, thank you. So Nebula Blue is sort of an interesting textured finish that sort of very much changes based on the light. Man, no, I like it. I really, really feel like this is a super, super tight looking phone. Sadly, we don't have a headphone jack, but the hardware is absolutely on point. One of the nice things that I feel like I always appreciate on OnePlus phones is you have the alert slider. So just like on an iPhone, you can very easily switch between vibrate, silent, ring, whatever the case is. I mean, I just don't understand why more people don't do this. Something that returns from the OnePlus 6T is the in-display fingerprint sensor. Now, generally speaking, it actually is pretty quick, but my main issue, just like with the 6T, is that it's just not quite as accurate as I'd like. So when you compare it to something like the Pixel or even the Galaxy S10e, which has the side-mounted fingerprint sensor, both of those are not only quicker, but more importantly, they seem to be very, very accurate. This works most of the time, and as always, if I'm on camera, it works 100% of the time, because that's just the way it works. But in normal use, I feel like 1 out of maybe 10 times it doesn't pick up my finger, and that's just not something that I really deal with pretty much any other kind of fingerprint unlock.
Between reviewing laptops, building PCs.
So the speakers aren't amazing. So it does have a bottom-firing speaker as well as one that's built into the tiny little earpiece. It's fine, I mean, it's certainly not bad, but it does not compare to phones such as the iPhone, such as the Pixel. It's just decent. And of course, we still don't have a headphone jack, which after taking a look at the Pixel 3a, it's got me nostalgic. It's got me wishing for that headphone jack back. One of the main reasons OnePlus has been popular is they put very high performance specs and very well optimized software in a package which generally speaking doesn't cost a ton. So inside here we have the absolute top of the line as far as Android goes right now. So we have a Snapdragon 855, an area between 6, 8, or even 12 gigs of RAM. Now, 12 gigs of RAM might seem excessive. I mean, that's like more than most laptops have, but realistically, it actually makes a lot of sense specifically on the OnePlus 7 Pro. If you look at the price difference to go from 6 gigs to 12 gigs and to double the storage, it's less than $100. That is an incredibly good deal. I know some people might be upset that, oh, the OnePlus is more expensive now, but considering that you're getting a 12 gig of RAM, a Snapdragon 855 flagship for less than $800, I mean, yeah.
$1,000.
That's actually a great point. Even less than $1,000, yeah. It is so hard to argue with the value proposition on this phone, right? I mean, sure, if you want to go and make sure that you save every penny you can drop the nice display and go down to something like the OnePlus 7. But considering that you get the awesome screen with 90 hertz, again, I can't really emphasize that enough, just how smooth that is, paired with these super reasonable upgrades, right? I mean, as long as you're okay with the blue color, because I think like previous years, the blue color is the only way to get the maxed out version like I have here. But I mean, it's only $90 to go from the bottom spec to double every single aspect of the phone, RAM, SSD, everything. I mean, that's pretty killer. I'm legitimately impressed. Take a look around back, and the OnePlus 7 Pro now has a new triple camera array. So very much like some other 2019 flagships, this gives you a ultra wide angle lens with a 17mm equivalent. You have a 48 megapixel standard shooter, and there's also now a new triple optical zoom, which will give you roughly a 78mm lens, or again, 3 times the optical zoom that you would get with the standard shooter. All of this being said, this is actually a really nice benefit because some of the previous OnePlus phones had a depth sensor as a secondary camera, which is code for not useful. So the camera honestly has been one of the main downsides of a lot of previous OnePlus phones. It's never really been bad, but it's certainly not been as good as something like the Google Pixel or even like a lot of the iPhones. But this year, they've actually stepped it up in a big way. And first of all, it is legitimately really nice to have this spread of cameras. So the ultra wide angle camera, it gets you a nice field of view. While it's not the sharpest thing in the world, all you do is jump into that 48 megapixel shooter, which to be fair does actually save it as a 12 megapixel shot. It just kind of takes each sort of pixel and kind of combines 4 pixels into one. But even so, you're actually getting some nice image quality here. And then when you zoom all the way into the 3 times optical zoom, it actually gives you a very different field of view. And this is something that I really appreciate. Most phones, such as the Samsung, especially the iPhone, they have a 2x optical zoom. And while that's nice, it doesn't really give me that same kind of zoom that I'd like. Whereas with a 3x optical zoom, it actually properly gives you, it's a very unique look. So if we put the OnePlus 7 side by side with the Pixel, what you'll see is that it actually does a little bit more of an aggressive job. It's sort of boosting the shadows, so it's a little bit more HDR, but also the colors are very much washed out. Photos here consistently look a little bit sort of desaturated maybe. Now that's not going to be necessarily a bad thing if you want to edit it, but I definitely have to say that the Pixel images do pop a lot more. Now, if you put something like this side by side with the iPhone, especially when you get into lower light, it makes a huge difference, as the Pixel as well as the OnePlus do have some sort of night sight mode. So the OnePlus calls it Nightscape, and while it's not quite as good as what you're getting on the Pixel, again, when you put it next to something like the iPhone, it makes a big difference. My main complaint here is that they do just look a little bit sort of artificial. There's a little bit too much processing going on to make it look like a natural image, which is something that the Pixel excels with. All that being said though, the camera is a huge step up on the OnePlus 7. No, it's not quite as good as something like the Pixel, but because you do have the triple lenses, and because all 3 of them are fairly competent, it does mean that the OnePlus 7 no longer has the camera as its Achilles heel. Achilles keel? The OnePlus 7 Pro is the most expensive OnePlus they've ever made, and yet I think it does a good job of justifying that price tag. In a world of $1,000 plus flagships, this delivers a very similar performance, but for several $100s less. My main piece of advice really here is get the maxed out model. For only $90, you're getting double the storage and double the RAM, and when you consider what this kind of phone is for less than 800 bucks, I mean, there's really not a lot to complain about. And that is sort of the definition of being worth it, isn't it?